We continue with resonance and dissonance between our tradition, the Christian tradition, and other religious traditions. In this case, Islam, one in which there is a great deal of conflict that does not seem to me to stem exactly from the tradition, but more from the level of development from the practitioners of the various traditions. In any case, I would like to read to you a passage from the Gospel according to John, 14th chapter, beginning in verse 8, as we open up the resonance and the dissonance with Islam. Philip said to Jesus, "Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied." Jesus said to him, "Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and still you don't know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. So how can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me, that's the one who does the works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. For very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact will do greater works than these, because I'm going to the Father. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask for anything, I'll do it." The grass withers and the flower fades. The word of our God stands forever. Signaling a likely end to one of the longest, most expensive searches in the history of science, physicists said Wednesday that they had discovered a new subatomic particle that looks for all the world like the Higgs boson, the key to understanding why there is diversity and life in the universe. How many of you stayed up for that? I understand there was a party in the library at Columbia University. Half a dozen people showed up, something along those lines. Yeah, the Higgs boson announcement. How many of you figured out what the Higgs boson is? I've read quite a bit this week trying to figure out what on earth the thing is, and I understood all the words that I read. I did. There were no big words that I couldn't grasp. I mean, molasses, I know what that is. I know what a particle is, I know what a field is, but I still can't tell you what the Higgs boson is. It might be a particle, but not really a particle, because particles have mass, and this kind of particle doesn't have mass, or maybe it has a little, but maybe not, depends on the time. It also might not be a particle exactly, it might be a wave, or perhaps even an entire field. But whatever this particle, wave, charge, field thing is, it apparently acts like molasses that slows other particle, wave, field things down and makes sure that matter exists, because matter has mass, and we're made up of the particles that have mass. And so without the Higgs boson, apparently, we wouldn't exist. So I just want to point out what that means is that all we are is slowed down particles. In any case, I was very appreciative of Robert Wright, who is a wonderful science writer. He usually deals with evolutionary psychology and whatnot, but wrote a piece on this, and he said, the truth is that physicists don't understand it either. Okay? Because the only way it makes any sense is mathematically on a piece of paper. There's really no way to conceive of these things, no intuition we can have that will give us a model that won't break down the moment we try and step one step out of the first thing we've said. No, it's only makes sense on paper. We have conceived of the origins of the universe on paper. Can you imagine? Maybe it was worth staying up for. And one has to wonder if in a Higgs-boson world, maybe the theistic models of our religions have become kind of irrelevant. I mean, the God that's up there, that's the theistic God, the God that has, we'll call it personality, that acts, that moves, that changes the laws of nature, so on and so forth. I mean, both Islam and Christianity were founded at a time when theistic views of religion were appropriate for the worldview that people had. But you really got to wonder now whether theism, the idea that there's a God, an entity that is active and moving things around, if that makes any sense at all anymore. So the question then becomes, do the religious traditions, Islam, Christianity, are the two I'm talking about today, but others, do they have anything left to offer? And I think they do. They have what I'd call spiritual intuition. Because the Higgs boson has always been around. That's nothing new. It's just new that we know about it. And other religious traditions, our religious tradition, though described in theistic terms, they have a kind of spiritual intuition and understanding of how it is that we relate to this universe, even if they didn't know about the Higgs boson. Islam in particular has an intuition to talk to us about, we moderns, who know so much, can conceive of the universe on the page, you know. Because what Islam is all about is understanding and revering the enormity of the power of the creative God. I mean, this God that is wholly other, extraordinary in strength and power, beyond our comprehension, worthy of our awe, admiration, and dedication. That's what Islam's strength is. And in a modern world where we think we know so much, it's a spiritual intuition that calls us up short. Saw a cartoon this week. I'm pretty sure it was in Michael Dowd's book, Thank God for Evolution, so some of you may have seen it, but it's a staircase. And there are 3 steps, and then there are a lot of steps up. And on the first step, you have a monkey, and on the second step, you have what I guess is a Cro-Magnon man, and on the third step is a businessman from, I don't know, the 60s. All right? And the businessman sort of is looking up at the staircase there. And the Neanderthal, or Cro-Magnon, is saying to him, yeah, I was wondering when you were going to notice that there were a lot more steps. The arrogance of the modern mind, called up short, really, by the intuition of Islam that we are to bow down, to pray to the enormous power of creation, to revere it, be in awe of it, really to obey and live within it. We Christians have that same view of God as well. I mean, when we talk about God the Father, I mean, this Father that Jesus is talking about in the Gospel of John, you know, that's the one to be revered, the one to stand in awe of. And yet there's something else that's dissonant between us and our Muslim brothers and sisters. And the dissonance comes with the incarnation. The idea that God became one of us, was incarnated, enfleshed into the world so that we might know God, relate to God, be in the presence of God. Now, that's a very theistic way of putting it, isn't it? I mean, that would require a God up there who has a kid who somehow becomes a human being, and those are all the things that people did try to figure out a couple of thousand years ago. But the intuition, the spiritual intuition of this idea is absolutely gorgeous. Because what it suggests is that the power of all creation, the creation of the Higgs boson and everything else, is intimately connected to you and to me. No separation. That this strength and power, let's call it God, let's call it Father, call it whatever you'd like, this strength and power is intimately connected and interwoven with you. What Jesus says in this passage that people often skip over, he says that anybody who believes in me will do the works that I do. Not only those works, but greater works than these. I'm thinking that Jesus couldn't have built that super collider. I'm thinking that Jesus couldn't have pulled off the genetic work that is taking place right now in Stanford for my brother-in-law. Greater works. Works that come because each one of us is touched by the presence of the creating power of God, as though we are a field of creators, a field with imagination, a field with creativity, bouncing off one another, opening our hearts and our minds, our ideas, growing, developing, unfolding in the presence of the enormous power of God. Think of that. Think of the power of creation that unfolds within you. Think of what you can do for others. With a smile, with just a pleasant way of being. I mean, I'm astounded to see my brother-in-law in the hospital now. He doesn't have a whole lot of energy, but whatever energy he's got, he looks up and smiles and says something nice to whoever it is that's around him. It makes a difference to people. It makes a difference when we're able to give love to others. It makes a difference when we're finding ways to create beauty. All of these things are the God of the Higgs boson unfolding within each of us. We stand in awe. We revere it. And yet we touch it. It gives value, and it's what makes life the valuable thing that we live into and grow into. Every year, it seems, we discover more and more complexity. Change is happening so rapidly that you just get the impression that something new is just bursting, waiting to emerge. Something we haven't thought of yet. And the faster and the bigger it all becomes, the more the intuition of Islam and Christianity that we need to stand and revere and not put ourselves above, but stand and revere this creative power of God becomes important. But the hope that's generated from the knowledge that this power of creation lies within us and unfolds within us is the gospel. The gospel of God's love that changes your life and the life of everyone around you. Amen.